Hello, Nick, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, all around the world on this very, very special day of learning that the ANA has organized. A fantastic initiative that we're very proud to be a part of. I am indeed today representing the Institute for Real Growth, and I'm not going to talk a lot about us, except to say that we partner with the ANA to help CMOs and other growth leaders drive very specifically more humanized growth. And I'll explain why, by connecting them to peers, experts, and best practices. Our partners, as you see, are a very broad spectrum of the marketing ecosystem. All the work and the research that's at the basis of this was done in partnership with the ANA, and you can see a very long list of partners that we have in industry, which includes Spencer Stewart. And I want to thank Nick, who in the past, sometimes I've been at 9 a.m. slots on a Sunday at the Marketing Masters. Today, I feel I'm in a luxury sandwich between Johnny Wata, who I've learned so much from, and indeed Greg Welsh, who is a partner of ours at the Institute. We run programs like the IRG 100 programs that are for CMOs and the IRG 1000 program that are actually for the whole industry. And Nick and the team have arranged open access to the IRG 1000 program for everyone listening to this session for the next few days. And so please take benefit from that if you're interested in playing around and learning around the topic that I'm discussing today. So I want to put it in context, and Nick already did some of that in the intro, which is really about the growth challenge that lots of businesses are finding themselves in, because the traditional growth formulas we are finding are not working anymore. Whether it's the barriers of entry that are disappearing and allowing a company like Airbnb to just totally disrupt hospitality, or new players like Capsule, who even this morning delivered me my medicine in a way that no pharmacy on any high street or main street has ever managed to do correctly with the right name at the right time. And they were nice to me. Incredible. But what's happening in general is that the license to grow for a company is being challenged. And when growth is lacking, and Greg will talk more about this, the CMO is typically the first person to go. The average tenure, as you know, is significantly lower than that of colleagues in sales or strategy or finance for that matter. And it is indeed the ANA's growth team, the CMOs that lead the marketing ecosystem, that were together the last time they were physically together, talking about how the reputation of marketing and in fact the influence of the marketer were being challenged. Now, I don't want to overblow this because we are marketers, and somebody has quipped that if there wasn't a crisis, we would create one. But there's been a lot written about this CMO crisis. And it is true. If we just take a step back and see what we spend our money on, who we partner with, the data we use, the budgets we spend, it's all changed. The technology, so much of what we do has changed, even though I think every senior marketer would say the fundamentals have not, the objectives have not. But how we do our work has changed a lot. And our peers have been critical of us. What they tell us in our research is, one, that they feel that we marketers are over-focusing on advertising and that we've been distracted by the shiny toys of digital, like this Alexa-enabled toilet, which I think none of us would be proud to use. What they also tell us is that they find marketers in general to be insufficiently commercial. And that's why, as Nick was just saying, you see this explosion of titles, of competing titles or actually competing roles that are playing the role that marketing used to play or actually superseding it. So what we did at the Institute for Real Growth is we partnered with Spencer Stewart to find out what it takes to win. What is the difference between CMOs and growth leaders at winning organizations, those that outperform their peers, and those at losing, declining organizations? Now, let me put a leadership context to this, because that's exactly what Nick asked us to do. Of course, COVID has changed and challenged so much. And at the same time, with the murder of George Floyd, and in general, we're seeing that established systems are being questioned by everyone, including our consumers. And what's interesting is the effect that's had. I would argue that the day before COVID struck, most boardrooms were focused on these two stakeholders, customers and capital markets. And Johnny Watta, I was already talking about it. What happened on one day after was this flipped to a focus on colleagues and the community. And this has led to a real, if we look at the last 18 months, a real change. For example, in the empathy that we have in business with our colleagues, with our partners, with everyone. If you think about this video, you must have seen this, the BBC professor being interviewed in Hong Kong, who was trying to hide the fact that his children were in the room. And compare and contrast that, this is pre-COVID, to today, where everyone has cats walking across their keyboards, kids tugging at their arms, and maybe dogs barking. You may hear mine in a few minutes. This is the new reality, and we're okay with it. And where in the past, and even at the beginning of COVID, companies were jumping to react on their own, very quickly it flipped to even the biggest players collaborating to do what society needed from us. And that all of this, as Dov so beautifully showed, was purpose-based. Those companies that were purpose-strong acted fastest because they could, because they knew what they stood for. So now our new reality is indeed, as Iwata was alluding to, we have a multi-stakeholder world to play in, and it is about what we call humanized growth. Now, this is not new. Already 10 years ago, or even further, as you can see, Gates was demanding at the World Economic Forum that we should be more about conscious capitalism. And 10 years later, BlackRock demanded it of the companies that it invests in, to say, I need to see your results, but I also need to see how you make a positive contribution to society. And the Business Roundtable responded. The CEOs of the world, just pre-COVID, had already said, every stakeholder is important to us. And this perhaps is where the big opportunity for the CMO lies. Because as you can see in this picture of the Unilever CEO and CMO, these CEOs that signed that roundtable declaration need help in understanding the underlying needs of each of the stakeholders, in creating value propositions for all of the key stakeholders. And who better to help with that than us, marketeers? So what does it take to win? Well, the work with Spencer Stewart all around the world, studying the profiles of the most successful chief marketing officers, led to this profile, the Da Vinci Growth Profile. And I'm going to go through it very quickly, talking about 10 experiences and 5 attitudes. Now, the experiences aren't for everyone. The experiences are for the company in a specific situation, a specific competitive challenge, and every experience will be different in terms of what's most important for the company now. But the growth attitudes that I'm going to talk about are for everyone. They are for every successful growth leader that we have seen be successful. Now, I'm going to talk about the experiences very quickly, because there are a few big changes, and some of them are like they've always been for marketing leaders. Marketers, more now than ever before, are the window on the world, as Keith Weed, the former CMO of Unilever, likes to say. We are about decoding the world, and it's no longer about just the customers. It's about the whole world. It's about helping the company get to one view, one, if you like, version of the truth of what's happening around us. And that includes all those stakeholders. Now, it doesn't mean that the marketers in charge of all that research, we need to partner with our peers in the boardroom and across the company. But it does need to be brought together to one version of the truth. And that's typically what we do. We're also no longer just about brand strategy or even category strategy. We are about business growth strategy. And our peers in the boardroom need to feel that we have true P&L sensitivity and responsibility. Business growth strategy is what they need to see us being concerned about. Now, then there are some staples like strategic brand development, product service innovation, how exciting these days, and also breakthrough content and engagement. These have always been on our platter. Where there's lots of news is in the customer experience, because so much is possible these days. And where it gets different again and more expanded is in the stakeholder engagement. Our role now is to actually connect all the pieces within the company and outside the company so that all those stakeholders understand what we're about and the difference we want to make as an organization. One story told in many different ways, but with one core purpose at the beginning. And what's also new is our involvement with our sales and e-commerce colleagues around revenue and channel leadership. Because to the customer, whether it's marketing or sales, doesn't matter when they're buying something in Instagram. They don't even know about our internal silos. And the good thing is they shouldn't know about them. And where there is yet another difference is in capability development. Nick already talked so much about the importance of building marketing capability among the marketing industry. But what we're finding more and more often is that we actually need to help all our other colleagues understand what it is we do and understand how they can play a role in the marketing of the company, in the building, the delivery of the purpose, all around. So marketing capability needs to be spread out across the organization. And obviously, ultimately, everything is about performance measurements and the places we spend our money. Now, those were the 10 experiences. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the attitudes. And of course, now my computer plays up and I'm seeing attitudes 5 times across my screen. I hope you're just seeing it once. The first is a sense of curiosity and agility. What we're seeing in every leading marketing leader is that they are continuously able to challenge themselves, to step back and learn, and to do that with an agility that is permanent, because the world around us has never changed as much, as fast as now. And we need to develop a culture in our organizations in marketing where we make learning permanent. How is it that a doctor or an accountant goes to school for many years and then one day they start practicing and they continue to go to school? But in our field, somehow it's assumed, okay, that we do a bachelor's, perhaps a master's, and then we're let loose and the world keeps changing, but we don't have the necessity to change and learn. That can't be right. In fact, it isn't right. And so what we're seeing is that the mindset that is right at the top of everything for these winning CMOs is that sense to learn. Raja likes to say that he learns a few minutes, if not an hour, every day. And he actually builds it into his schedule. He said this in an interview I did with him on the Humanizing Growth series of the IRG. It was one of the things that most impressed me with such a senior leader, declaring to everyone else who was more junior in his organization, we assume, to say, I need to lead learning, so you probably need to as well. The second attitude is all about being connected and collaborative, because the big insight here and the big winning organizations are building experiences, are building solutions to their clients that aren't just about what they offer. They are part of an ecosystem of solutions. They are partnerships where Uber and Spotify are doing something together, Facebook and another, Nestle and a third, Unilever and a fourth, all these collaborations. And if we're not the people that people want to work with, if we're not the preferred partner, we're going to miss out on these opportunities. And collaborative, because internally also what we see is that we need to have the other disciplines want to open up, want to collaborate with us, want to ask the questions on how can we make sure that in our touch points we're consistent with what we're saying in other touch points. A sense and a priority to being connected and collaborative is massive. But what that also requires is a spirit of servant leadership. And I would say, and all credit to the ANA, that if we look at the speakers today in this program, the day of the big ego CMO, the celebrity CMO, are well and truly over. What we see is that there are CMOs that are humble, that are servant leaders. They are inspiring, I'll get to that, but they bring together teams, their own teams and other teams, and they collaborate with their peers in the board. A great McKinsey study of beginning of last year pointed out that the tenure of a CMO is directly correlated to the number of quality relationships they have with their peers. This isn't a coincidence. This is not about leading everything. It's about coordinating and aligning and inspiring everything to do. And that is a spirit of servant leadership required on the part of us. That takes nothing away from the fact that everyone around us, especially our financial and our sales peers, our boss, the CEO, need to see that we are as speed and impact obsessed as they are, that we are as P&L sensitive as they are, that we may have our own marketing metrics, but it's the business metrics, the impact that the business makes in the outside world, that matters. A Cannes Lion is great to celebrate, but it's even better if we've fought our way into a new market and actually crafted a winning position that's differentiated and actually competitive. Leading positions, leading speed. The days of negotiating between local and global, regional teams about the precise wording of strategy documents are over. It's about getting stuff done and clarifying, in fact, demonstrating every second of the day that we are speed and impact obsessed. And then I'll end with what is perhaps the most unique and important marketing attitude. Because in all change, in all growth, there is risk. There are leaps of faith that we and the CEO are asking our colleagues, our partners to take towards a new world. Perhaps it's a new innovation. Perhaps it's a new way of working. Perhaps it's a new partnership. Perhaps it's a new product that we're bringing to market in a new way. It will always be about risk, and it will always be about getting people to be their better self and do something they've never done before. Just this morning, I was listening to an interview with the CEO of Pfizer that talked about how he completely reframed the COVID vaccine discussion, where in the past they'd been able to make about 150 million doses a year. And he said, if I'd said 300, they would have tried to redesign the system and made it better so that they could double production. But when I said 2 billion, they started to work in totally different ways. It's about getting the courage, not just among our colleagues, but ourselves, to say the truth, to say those things that are real in the real world, that live in our consumers' minds, that are happening, that our partners or our competitors are doing, and that perhaps no one wants to tell inside. We need to be that courageous voice in the room of truth, of the window in the world, but we also need to be that inspiring storyteller that gets people excited about the prospect of this growth. Yes, there's risk, but look at what's possible if we can do this. And that's so exciting. And very often it falls on the marketing leader to play that role within the organization. So those are the 10 experiences and the 5 attitudes that we have found to be the most important. Now I want to just clarify and in fact, re-emphasize some of the important shifts. The first is that we are indeed seeing a significant shift towards more humanized growth. Research that we've done among the participating CMOs of the Institute for Real Growth sees that 78% says that they feel that their business strategy now reflects a more humanized spirit. Very important. But perhaps even more encouraging, looking at the CMOs of all around the world in this room, together with Nick and Bob Leodis, is the fact that the CMOs themselves feel that in this new world, in this multi-stakeholder, humanized growth strategy world, the CMO is indeed seeing that they can play a bigger, more important role. They're seeing that their peers are engaging more. They're seeing that the questions are being asked and that they're being invited into more rooms, into more senior positions, into more business discussions than ever before. So where I started by saying perhaps this is the marketing opportunity, where we've come out of a period of receding influence and perhaps reputation, what we're seeing now is a massive turnaround, that with the advent of multi-stakeholder growth, with more humanized growth being important, it is actually the chief marketing officer and all of the marketing discipline that's able to help the rest of the organization understand what the needs are of each of these stakeholders and partner with them to collaborate to develop value propositions for each of those stakeholders. Now, that could be an employee stakeholder that you work with HR on to develop. It could be an investor stakeholder's perspective that you work on with investor relations and finance. It could be a partner stakeholder that you work on with supply chain. It doesn't matter. The point is the stakeholder thinking drives everybody to be a marketeer. Do we understand the underlying needs of this stakeholder? Do we understand well, we can create value in their minds? And are we able to deliver that in a coherent and competitively differentiating manner? Does that sound like a job description you know? I think so. So I would argue that when we pull all the pieces together and we look at ourselves in the mirror, or as this little cat does in the puddle of water right in front of it, the real question is not whether we should and whether we could. The question is, if not now, when? Never before has the demand among our colleagues in the market been bigger for stakeholder thinking, for true insights and innovative value proposition development. And if not me as a marketer, who? Who else in the boardroom has the opportunity and the ability to partner with our colleagues to understand this and to develop winning propositions? So that is the Da Vinci Growth CMO that was developed, the profile with Spencer Stewart, and you're going to listen to Greg Welsh in a minute, and the Institute for Real Growth. We've written quite a lot about it, and Spencer Stewart has also published a white paper that you can download from their website. But we've also provided access, as I mentioned right at the beginning of my little speech, to our online platform. All week, there will be open access to the introduction session and to the Da Vinci Growth CMO session on the IRG platform. I'm going to give you the details here, and I'll just pause for a minute to let you take note of these details. The web address is platform.instituteforrealgrowth.com. The sign-on name, the username, if you like, is Global Day of Learning, and what a great initiative it is. And the password is ANA Access 2021 ! So with that, I'm going to hand you over, perhaps first to Nick, but then to a leader in the industry and a great partner to the Institute for Real Growth, Greg Welsh, who can take honest responsibility with his colleagues all around the world for the work that I was just allowed to share with you. And with that, I want to thank you for your time and always open for questions and emails afterwards if you so wish. So thank you very much. And here is my email address. Take care.